Good evening, everyone. My name is Jess Evita. Welcome to the 2021 UC Merced Leadership Conference. Again, my name is Jess Evita, and I serve as Associate Director for the Margo F. Souza Student Leadership Center here on campus. And each year we sponsor the UC Merced Leadership Conference. Now, in the Souza Leadership Conference, the Souza Leadership Center, we believe that we need leadership to solve the challenges of today. We believe that we need leadership to create a more equitable world. We also believe that great leaders are lifelong learners. And that is why the Souza Leadership Center every year hosts the annual UC Merced Leadership Conference. And that is why we are so excited to have you here for our closing session, our keynote session. Now, before we get started, I want to acknowledge the fact that I am currently in the Souza Leadership Center, which is housed on the UC Merced campus. And we think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that our university sits on the land of local indigenous people, including the Yokuts and the Miwok, who inhabited this land long before we got here. And we embrace their continued connection to this region, and we thank them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and collaborate on their traditional homeland. So we think it's important before we get started on the leadership conference to take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all Yokuts, Miwok people, past and present. Now, the theme of this year's leadership conference is Author Your Journey, because we believe that one of the most effective ways that we can address the challenges of today is for our leaders to bring their unique identities, their skills, their experiences, their unique voices to contribute to a diverse community of leaders. We believe that every UC Merced student can author their journey. And that is why we're excited to have you here today to learn about how our keynote speaker has authored their journey. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's moderator, who will share more about the session and lead the discussion tonight. Lidia Haile is a fourth-year mechanical engineering student here at UC Merced and also serves as the programming and operations student lead for the Souza Leadership Center. Lidia is past president of the National Society of Black Engineers, also known as NSBE, and continues to be an active member. Lidia is also a member of Alpha Kappa Psi fraternity and Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority. Lidia says that being involved in these organizations at UC Merced has helped her grow into a confident and dedicated leader who values and amplifies her identity at all times. Thanks to her variety of experiences at UC Merced, Lidia looks forward to pursuing all of her interests after college, including consulting, human resources, and project management. I personally have learned a lot about leadership in working with Lidia this past year. Welcome, Lidia, and thank you for moderating this year's Leadership Conference keynote session.
Thank you, Jess, and good evening to everyone watching tonight. As Jess shared, my name is Lidia Haile, and I'm so honored to be here tonight as your moderator for the annual UC Merced Leadership Conference. We've already experienced so many incredible presentations from various student leaders tonight, including Lupita Carranza, Brandon Lopez, and Ethan Murcia, during our opening session earlier today. The opening session also included inspiring words from Margo F. Souza herself. It is now my pleasure to be moderating our keynote session, the closing session for this year's conference. Before we get started, I do want to let everyone know how you can participate in our keynote session tonight. You'll notice that down in your menu, you have a chat function, and we highly encourage you to engage in the chat, say hello, and let us know where you're from. If you hear something that really resonates with you throughout our time here, we'd love to hear your reactions and your thoughts down in the chat below. You'll also notice that you have a Q&A feature. We've prepared questions for our keynote speaker, but we do feel that you should be free to submit your own questions. So please do that, and we'll get to them if we can. And finally, closed captioning is available for those of you who would like to use it. This feature is also available in your menu below. Now, for those UC Merced students and alumni watching, we'll be having a special networking session with our keynote speaker right after this session at 6:30 p.m. via the Zoom meeting platform. We really hope to see you all there. And finally, before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to the Leadership Conference Planning Committee for your year-round support of this conference. The Souz Leadership Center Student Advisory Board, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Charles Nies, and Margo F. Souza herself. Margo, without your gracious support, this conference would not at all be possible. Now, it's my big pleasure to introduce to you one of the biggest supporters of the Souz Leadership Center and of student leadership at UC Merced, Dr. Charles Nies, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. Dr. Nies not only earned his PhD in leadership studies, but he's a lifelong learner who continues to teach us so many important lessons about leadership, both the beauty of leadership as well as the importance of addressing inequalities in leadership. Thank you, Dr. Nies, for your continued support. The theme for this year's conference is Authoring Your Journey. As a first-generation college student, Dr. Nies had to author his own leadership journey. We're so grateful that that journey brought him here to UC Merced. Now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Charles Nies.
Thanks, Lidia. That was super sweet. I'm like, I shouldn't even speak. I should just leave it right there because it was so awesome. Thanks so much. And I'm super excited to be here with you all. I shared with some of the folks earlier that I just flew back into town. I've been up in the mountains of Utah for the past week facilitating a leadership institute. And the individuals at that institute were people that ranged in age from 35 to 65. And they were up at that institute to learn about how to recognize the strengths of self and discover self, their skills, their talents, their gifts that they have to offer and give to others, as well as to discover their passion, their sense of purpose, their why. As you think about authoring your leadership journey, understanding self and your skills and your talents is a critical part of that, recognizing your purpose, your why, your passion, another really important part of that as well. But the other piece that they were discovering up there is who they want to take with them on that journey. And it's important for you all to know, to discover who are those people that will join you on your leadership journey as you author your leadership story, because no leader travels alone. And so it's important to think about who are those people that are going to join you on that path, as then you collectively discover a vision of the future that you all will create. And that is the power of leadership, and that is the power of you all. Now I mentioned those people I was with, they were between the ages of 35 and 65. Unlike all of you who have chosen at such a great age in your life to lean into this opportunity, to sit and learn from Siobhan Charles, who I've been watching since she was a first-year student, and the things that she's accomplished already in her life is absolutely amazing. But importantly, for you all to begin thinking about that authoring of your journey, the authoring of your leadership story, and who you are and what you learned today about your gifts, your talents, and your strengths, your purpose, your passion, and who are those other travelers who are going to travel along with you in that journey as you create that incredible picture of the future. So I'm honored to be with you all and congratulate you for making that incredible choice to be here tonight, to lean into this opportunity, and to continue to author your leadership journey. Have a wonderful conference. I'm going to sit back now and learn from Siobhan myself, and I look forward to the rest of the evening. Take care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nies, for your words and for your continued leadership. And thank you again for being here tonight. It's always our pleasure to have you. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the 2021 UC Merced Leadership Conference, UC Merced Alumna Class of 2012. Siobhan is a talented musician and Ford model, founder of the Future of Creatives Group, and Director for Communications and Creative Partnerships at Visco. Siobhan is a multi-hyphenate creator and a creative and force in music, fashion, and tech. She's known across several industries as a Renaissance woman, continues to disrupt the norm as a classically trained musician, model, and changemaker in tech. She's been named on Forbes 30 Under 30 marketing and advertising list. Siobhan is dedicated to disruptive thinking, supporting women in creative fields, and amplifying the stories of underrepresented voices. Whether it's Siobhan's influence and passion or her pursuit to break the mold as a millennial who's trailblazing a new path for future generations of women in tech and entertainment, Siobhan is disrupting industries as a champion of creativity and inclusion. Her influence in fashion, tech, and music have been profiled in many outlets like Billboard, Coveter, Dazed, Complex UK, Hypebeast, Paper, Elle, and Ebony, noting her history-making moves as the first African-American woman and trailblazer to create roles held at both Twitter and Instagram. SHAVONE also currently heads up creative partnerships and communications at Visco out of LA. As a tastemaker and founder of her own consultancy and creative group, Future of Creatives, SHAVONE has collaborated with several top brands across industries, ranging from Nike to Google, Spotify, Dapper Dan, Twitter, and Instagram. In addition to her incredible career thus far, SHAVONE really embodies what it means to author your journey. Along the way, she's also created opportunities for so many others to do the same. Please join me in giving the warmest welcome to SHAVONE.
Thank you so much, Lidia. So glad to be here. So grateful for you all. Super excited to just kind of be here on your journey and bestow any wisdom I can. But y'all are doing it right now, so I'm just grateful to take up space with you.
Thank you, SHAVONE. We're so happy to have you here, and we're so glad that you can make it. I would also like to introduce two student leaders who will be joining us in tonight's conversation with SHAVONE. First, we have Janet Norio, who is a third-year student leader here at UC Merced. She currently serves as chair of the Souza Leadership Center Advisory Board. Janet has also attended every single UC Merced Leadership Conference since 2019. Thank you, Janet, for your dedication and continued leadership.
Thank you, Lidia. I am so happy to be here.
So great to have you here. Okay, next we have Zachary Silva, who is a second-year student, and he's a member of both the Yosemite Leadership Program and the Souza Leadership Center Advisory Board. He's also a very talented photographer. Thank you, Zachary, for being here, for your continued talent and your leadership.
Thank you, Lidia. I'm so excited to be a part of this session.
All right, so let's get started. SHAVONE, you graduated from UC Merced in 2012, and since then you've transitioned into this incredible career where you've had an impact and continue to have an impact in a wide range of spaces, from diversity in tech to fashion to consulting. You've really paved your own way. So we'd like to start by first asking you to share in your own words how you would describe the work that you do.
Thanks. Wow, 2012. Whew. Giving away my age here, y'all. Thanks again. Happy to be here. How I would describe what I do. I guess first describe myself as an advocate and activist. And I try to weave advocacy into every bit of everything that I do, just in my life, in my professional life, in my personal life. I think accountability for community is so incredibly important for all of us to kind of own in whatever space we take up. So I'd say advocacy is kind of the anchor of who I am and kind of what keeps me passionate about doing all these things that I like to do. And then I guess I describe myself as just a multi-hyphenate creative. I think creativity is another just foundational thing that I kind of bring along with me into everything that I do. And outside of that, I would just say on the comms and marketing side, I am I'd say like young, like business marketing executive. Also, I think when it comes to D&I and diversity and inclusion, kind of hand in hand with advocacy, I've kind of just really zoomed into being just a subject matter expert in that space. And again, bringing that lens into whatever I'm doing. So outside of being a multi-hyphenate creator, I would say I'm an advocate, I'm a DEI leader, and just kind of a millennial executive in tech.
Thank you so much, SHAVONE. You do so much, and we thought it would be really important to share in your own words what you kind of get from your work so that our audience really gets an understanding of the impact that you're always making. So since this is our annual leadership conference, let's talk leadership. SHAVONE, I want to ask you the second question. What does leadership mean to you, and why has it been important or vital within your career?
Leadership. I think leadership, what leadership means to me is sacrifice and accountability. And I think just going that extra amount, going past the limit, leadership to me is, again, I think just kind of compromise. It's vulnerability. It's kind of all of these things that are uncomfortable and don't always feel good and aren't always kind of immediately rewarded. It's really doing what's necessary. Even when everyone else doesn't want to, even when you don't want to, it's sort of zooming out and zooming into selflessness and truly being in tune with what's happening around you and what's happening with your community. And I feel like a big part of leadership is just kind of collective accountability and also kind of challenging everybody around you to also kind of mirror that accountability. And sorry, tell me the second question, Lidia, remind me.
No problem. So the second part of the question is, how important has leadership been in your career and in what way?
Yeah, I think for me, leadership's been so necessary. If I think about, I mean, all of us, me included, in so many of us being, first gen college students and being the first in our families to do so much, we don't have any options but to lead, right? We can't wait on a savior. We can't wait on someone to come tell us what to do, show us the way. We have to be our own North Star. We have to be our own compass. We have to chart our own path, and one foot in front of the other in charting that path. And I feel like being a leader is so necessary, even before you get this job or before you're at this board table or you get that crazy expensive salary that y'all are all going to get, or before you go and start your own amazing business. Leading starts now. Like leading started for you before you got to UC Merced, to be honest. That's what brought you to UC Merced. So I think when we think about leadership, we always think about something we have to aspire to be and aspire to. But to be honest, you're already doing it. The fact that you're here right now at this conference is a telltale sign that you're already leading. And I think leading it's so necessary in every aspect of your life. Being in the driver's seat at the steering wheel of your life, being intentional about what you're doing and why, which direction you're going, how you're spending your time, how you're treating people, what you want to be remembered for. I feel like leadership is kind of a part of every step of the way, with every step that you take, every decision that you make, from now until the end of time, to be honest. So I feel like it's so necessary, and it's something that we all have to get comfortable with doing and owning, and realize that it's a responsibility, but it's a muscle that you can kind of continue to build and just continue to get better at. It's not something that will ever stop. You'll always be able to be better. I mean, Charles just talked about him doing this leadership camp with folks that are 35 to 65. Part of being a good leader is being a good learner. It's part of being a student forever. Even when you graduate from UC Merced, let me tell you, that's when school really starts. That's when learning really, really, really starts. So yeah, I think leadership is constantly necessary with every step that we take, and y'all are already leaders. You're doing it right now.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. We know leadership is so important in every single industry, so it's amazing to hear how it's kind of helped you in all the industries that you're involved in. And for me, it's really impactful to hear how you talk about like learning really starts when you graduate, because that's so interesting to hear. Now, I know Janet has a question related to this year's conference theme, so go ahead, Janet.
Yes, so Siobhan, it is amazing to meet you and hear from you. So the theme of this year's conference is author your leadership journey. Why is it crucial for leaders to stay true to themselves and be the author of their own leadership journey?
I think this idea of authoring your own journey, it sounds so amazing and so easy when you say it. I'm going to author my own journey. But I really feel like authoring your own journey is a byproduct of standing in your truth and walking in your truth and leading the way you want to lead. I think a lot of us are sort of taught someone's going to come write our story. Somebody is going to come help us. Somebody's going to come tell us what to do, tell us where to go, tell us how to do it, tell us who to be. And oftentimes people are constantly telling us who to be and how we should be. I think when it comes to authoring your own story, you're the only person walking in your shoes. I think there's no better person fit to craft who you are and how you should be living and what you should be doing. A huge part of, I say, just my life mantra, even back when I first decided to go to UCM, was, this school is such a palette for so many amazing things. When I went to UC Merced, I seen just this bigger picture of all this promise and all this possibility and all of this change and legacy that I could help build. It was, to me, it was a blank canvas that I could kind of create and make into my own. And when I think about authoring your own journey, that the thought of that can be a huge thought. That can be discouraging if you kind of let it kind of shrink you and kind of be afraid of it. But I think authoring your own journey, it's realizing that you take it day by day. It's realizing that through these small actions, and like I talked about before, these really specific decisions, and being intentional is sort of how you end up authoring your own journey. It's page by page. Don't think about the whole book right now. I'm one of those people who definitely was, I go back to junior year, sophomore year, senior year, like shook. Like, I don't have a job. What am I going to do? I don't care how many internships I've done. What am I going to do? I don't have a job. How am I going to feed myself? What am I going to do? Like, thinking about your story, your journey can be a lot to swallow, but it's really because I think it's out of just, anticipation, but also just this bigger feeling that it's going to work out. That anxiety is necessary. It's a necessary push. It's the necessary motivating factor that kind of jolts you into action. Don't let fear freeze you, I guess is my point. Because fear can also freeze you right in your tracks. And when I think about authoring your own journey, it's sort of daring to sort of turn the page. It's daring to kind of rise above circumstance. It's daring to kind of keep walking and keep stepping, and daring to get back up, because you're definitely going to get knocked down. So stories have highs and lows. I think that's the biggest thing to remember in your journey, giving yourself grace, giving yourself patience. Like I said, so many of us are the first to do what we're doing in our family. You're turning the page, you're breaking the cycle, you're shifting generational curses. You are not a victim of circumstance. So I think authoring your own journey is writing that, it's declaring that, it's saying that. It's, for me, it starts with the power of thought, and what you think about, you bring about. I'm a huge believer in that. So for me, and as I've been authoring my own journey, a huge tool that I found to be helpful is literally writing down my dreams, writing down my goals, making sure that like my actions are all connected to what I want to be doing, where I want to be, the people I want to be around, the community that I want to be a part of. I think a huge part in authoring your journey and thus living that path you want to live is becoming it and truly believing it, and being willing to do what it takes and being disciplined enough to really walk that path and stay focused and stay disciplined. And again, give yourself grace, because I know, like I said, obstacles seem so much bigger in our own minds, until we just start to take it one day by day, one foot in front of the other.
Thank you, Siobhan. So we know that authoring your journey really does require the bravery to try to be authentic. And I know Zach has a question about the challenges of authenticity. So go ahead, Zachary.
Thanks, Lydia. And thank you, Siobhan, for being here. It's great to meet you. So my question is, how do we stay true to ourselves in a society that tells us to be authentic, but then places so many judgments and expectations on us? A society that is not always inclusive towards individuals' multiple identities. So with that, all to consider, how do we manage staying true to ourselves as leaders?
So good to meet you too. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. That tension I don't want to say I don't want to say the world's never gonna be a better place, but that tension, I'll just say up until now in my life, it hasn't gone anywhere. I've just learned better ways to deal with it. I've become stronger and more foundationally just sturdy and confident within myself and walking in my own truth. I will say that, you know, a famous quote from Maya Angelou is, if you can't change the circumstance or situation, you change your attitude around it. And for me, in combating that, you know, being a young Black woman, you know, the majority of my career has been in tech, and you know, being in those spaces where there's rarely ever been any people of color. Even when I was at UC Merced and I entered at Google, Google had no clue who UC Merced was, what we were. We made sure they knew by the end of that internship now, but you know, at the time, it was scary. And I feel like, you know, when we go into these spaces and we look around and we don't see anyone who looks like us, our first gut reaction is, how do I disappear? How do I blend in? How do I become a chameleon and just blend in with the background? How do I stay out the way, unseen, unheard? And you've got to fight that. You have to fight that because, you know, as hard as it is, it's so necessary that we normalize ourselves in these spaces that notoriously aren't designed for us, or notoriously have told us to stay out, keep out, or notoriously just, you know, haven't been welcoming. I feel like if the door is locked, beat that door down. That's my approach, to be honest. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. There are some long nights that come with it, but I think going back to collective accountability and lifting as you climb and ensuring, you know, once you crack open that door, just kick it open so other people can come through it. Like you really have to think in that way, because we legit would not be sitting here having this conversation, having access to a place like UC Merced, having access to education, if there weren't other marginalized people, our great-great-grandparents, our ancestors, and people who kicked down that door and said, you know what, enough is enough. And I feel like when it comes to authenticity and being yourself, I think the journey there is, I think you knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, having ethics, having integrity, realizing that you can be successful and have ethics and values, and you can be successful as yourself. Like you're enough. There's a quote from Elaine Welteroth, more than enough. So I think it's about self-value and truly, like I said, not enabling people or institutions or circumstances to shrink who you are. And if you're in a space and you show up as yourself, and you feel like that space you're battling that space and you can't overcome it, leave the space. I guarantee you that you want to be where you're celebrated. You want to work where you're celebrated. If you think about going into the workforce and occupying a space, you want to occupy a space you can add to. You want to occupy a space that celebrates you, that will enable you to grow and blossom. You don't want to be anywhere that's going to make you shrink anyways. So to a certain extent, like I said, go where you're celebrated. There are so many spaces now where you can be celebrated, and remember, you're the value proposition. We're sort of tricked out of our own magic and out of our own worth by these other parties and these jobs and these places and institutions, and that's a lie. You're the value proposition. You are the tool. You are the next generation. You're the future. So I think, when you think about that from that perspective, you're walking in your truth. You're charting your own path. You're writing your own story, and either you enter spaces that kind of embrace that and allow that, and if not, go to the next door, open that next door, kick down that next door, Don't waste too much time trying to turn the Titanic around. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, I think you kind of have to be comfortable in yourself and know your limits and figure out, from a self-care and mental health perspective, balance that. Go where you're celebrated, be bold. If you want to fight, but know your limits and prioritize your self-care. I have to caveat that because I feel like as, minority students and just going into the workforce as a minority, as a next gen, first generation, we've already been struggling. Chances are stuff's been hard for us already. So we go into a workplace and we have to fight there too. It's exhausting. So I'm gonna also say prioritize your self-care and mental health and stay where you're celebrated.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Siobhan, for your incredible answer. Definitely authenticity is such a big form of bravery that I feel like we don't talk about too much. So thank you for sharing how you've navigated that both in your career and in your life. So I see we do have a question in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that. It's from Magdalena Castaneda. I hope I said that right. And her question is, can you share how your journey first started, either as a student attending UC Merced or after graduation? How did you know to trust your decision and fight through the fear or failure?
Yeah, I mean, my journey at UC Merced started literally with a college tour from my high school. We went to every like legit university in California. We went to Stanford, UCLA, UC Berkeley, blah, blah, blah. We went everywhere, okay? And I'm like, as soon as we got to UC Merced, I just felt an energy shift, to be honest. I felt a stillness. I felt like I could actually hear myself think. Like I felt a stillness. And this is, God, we were, I think, the second graduating class. Charles will have to chime in here, but I believe we were the second graduating class. So I came along and UC Merced was pretty small. It was very intimate. And my experience on campus with the professors, with the staff was so just personal. And I felt like at that time, if you were at UC Merced, it's because you really wanted to be there. You really wanted to do new things. You really wanted to trailblaze. Like you really seen a vision, right? Because we're talking half of the buildings that you guys are in weren't even built there. They weren't even built yet, okay? There is acres of cows, okay? So I feel like so many of the early trailblazers at UC Merced they're true visionaries. They are Charles, all of the staff there, true visionaries, people who really were ready to build the change that honestly we needed to see just from a higher education perspective. So UC Merced, it is that dream. You guys are living that dream, to be honest. So when I came to UC Merced, I seen that, I envisioned that, and I felt it was a place I could fit into and make my own. And it was a place where I felt I had room to grow. I could grow with the university. And for me, if I think about even my path, my career path, and kind of my approach to things in life, like I want to go places where I can grow. I want to be in spaces that I can add into and blossom into, and hopefully on the other end, when I'm done, come out a better person, come out a better leader, and just kind of grow and evolve. So if I go somewhere that's sort of already built out, already has all this bureaucracy, all these check boxes, all these things, and I'm gonna have to fall in line probably with said structure to a certain extent, right? So anyways, that's kind of how my journey at UC Merced started. And I just started asking questions. I started, whatever wasn't there yet, I was like, okay, how can we create it? How can we do it? I'm really into music. I'm really into fashion. Okay, let me talk to, folks, on the ASB side. Let me talk to, we don't have a BSU. Let's start it. We don't, back when I was there, it was all about the ABC conference. How do we do these things? How do we create how do we create what we need? We have the resources. And I think that was the biggest enabler for me at UC Merced was, okay, there are things that I really want to make happen. There are things missing that I really feel that I need. Okay, how do I go and seek them out? I did a fashion show. I went to the UC Merced Mall, stopped by PacSun, got a partnership to do a fashion show. Like, I think ABC, what's up? I think for me, it was just about, again, being a builder. And I think UC Merced is a perfect, back then and probably even now still, it's a perfect place if you have a builder mindset. So that was sort of how I got my start. And then I'm gonna look at the second part of this question. How did you know to trust your decisions and fight through the fear of failure? To be honest, that is an ongoing tension, my friend. Fighting through the fear of failure, I don't think the fear of failure will ever really go away. If it does, that's when you should really be questioning, like, what's going on with me? When you are not afraid to fail. I mean, I listen to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast. This woman is still afraid to fail. Oprah is afraid to fail. Steve Jobs was afraid to fail. Like, Google's afraid to fail. Barack Obama was afraid to fail. Michelle Obama is afraid to fail about something. Everybody, that fear, I feel, keeps us human. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us level. It keeps us in tune with the reality of life and what in life can occur, curveball that can come out of nowhere. I think it's not about being afraid to fail. It's just knowing that whatever comes your way, you're going to get back up. That's, for me, it's about being, I feel like it's just about being more agile. All you do is kind of learn more about the curveballs. You become just, as you mature, you become a master of people. You learn more about how to work better with people. You learn more about yourself. It's really just an ongoing journey. The failure never stops, but I think it's just about your perspective and how you look at it. I see it as the getting up never stops, the getting better never stops, versus the failure never stops.
Okay, thank you so much, Siobhan. It was definitely really nice hearing about your time here at UC Merced, especially the ABC conference. I didn't know it was going on back then, but it's still happening now, so it's great. But
Nice.
we're now
Yep.
oh, thank you. We're now nearing the end of this conversation, so I wanted to begin to wrap things up. First, I'd like to thank Janet and Zachary for joining us tonight in our keynote session, as well as your continued leadership on campus. It does not go unnoticed. Best of luck to you as you guys continue to engage in leadership this year.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful being here and being inspired by all of you.
Thank you, Siobhan, for the very inspiring words. And thank you, Lidia, for being such a great host.
Thank you both.
Thank you both. Thank you both again for doing so amazing and for joining us tonight. So I'm going to get to the last question very soon, but Siobhan, it has been incredible speaking with you this evening. I really appreciated hearing how you've authored your leadership journey, both on campus and both after UC Merced. And now I'd like to end it off with a closing question for you. One of the goals for this year's annual leadership conference is to discuss specific leadership skills we would like to encourage our student leaders to consider as they engage in leadership throughout this academic career. So I wanted to ask you, what are the top 3 leadership skills that you feel have helped you reach your current success?
Top 3 skills, wow, narrowing this down. One skill I would say is empathy. Empathy and compassion, I would just pair as one as a skill / just, I feel like it's so necessary to be able to see things through a different perspective and meet people halfway and understand that, like, nothing's all about you, period. Like, nothing is all about you. And I think the moment you realize that is the moment you get to, your world opens up to so many other ideas and perspectives. And you can equip yourself kind of with everything you need, you know, through the experiences and learnings and perspectives of others. And then I would say zealousness slash, yeah, just being zealous, being, God, like I said, you're definitely, you're gonna fall, you're gonna scrape your knees, you're going to, you know, hit obstacles. That's guaranteed. It's gonna be hard. There are gonna be difficult moments, but you hope the reward, you know, is so much. You feel like everything was worth it. You know, during moments like this, or moments where you get to add to somebody's journey and just kind of evolve and give back and be a part of somebody else's story and try to create the change that you want to see. So I'd say zealousness, and geez, my last one. I would say vision, just intentionality. I feel like leadership is always about looking ahead and spending time in the present, but also thinking big picture, zooming out, always looking ahead, always looking around the corner, and just having a bigger picture perspective. Kind of goes hand in hand with empathy, to be honest, and compassion. It's just kind of being able to zoom out and see the big picture.
Wow, thank you, Siobhan. I loved your answer, especially when you were talking about intentionality. That's something Jess always stresses, which I love because I never used to think about it before I started working at the Souza Leadership Center. But I think it's so important for sure. So thank you again for taking the time to share your story with us regarding how you authored your leadership journey. We're so proud that you are an alumna of UC Merced, and again, we're so excited to root for you in your continued success. Thank you as well to Dr. Charles Nies for your continued and unwavering support. Thank you, Margo F. Souza, for sponsoring the 2021 UC Merced Leadership Conference. We're so grateful for your dedication to leadership at UC Merced. This conference and many past year's conferences would not be possible without your contributions. We also want to acknowledge our Leadership Conference Planning Committee, who worked so hard to make this conference a success. This committee includes Alejandro Delgadillo, Emily Slocum, Janet Norio, Jess Evra, and our very own alumni, JJ Julian, Lisbeth Lupi, Jacob Crosdale, and Andrea Guerra. And finally, I want to give a big thank you to all of you, the UC Merced community, students, friends, staff, faculty, alumni, family, and friends of the university. Thank you for your continued leadership and support. We're so grateful that you continue to author all your different journeys and engage in leadership to work towards a more equitable world where everyone has the opportunity to achieve happiness and a fulfilling life. Before we wrap up, we do want to remind you one last time that we'll be having our alumni and students networking session with Siobhan at 6:30 p.m. and we hope to see you all there. On behalf of the Margo F. Souza Student Leadership Center, thank you all for attending the 2021 UC Merced Leadership Conference. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.